beginning a new adventure. Too good to be true? The headlights are surprisingly clear, considering the age of the car. I believe they are not original, mostly likely replacement units. My problem with them though, is the light coverage is concerning, especially considering that sharp corner to the top left. I really do not wish to blind traffic going the opposite direction. View from above, paint unfortunately sun damaged. Less than 400 kilometers later, a dying radiator fan and a faulty compressor has caused high engine temperature and high idle speed. Decided to investigate why one of my front turn indicators was darker than the other. Removed the yellow lens to find my left turn indicator needs refinishing. Cancel front door without door card. Decided to take out my front passenger door card since the cover was coming out at the bottom a little. Looks water damaged. Used tape to fix my problem. The antenna works, but is stuck. Could not find a way to unstuck it unfortunately. Also, there is silicone used on the weather strip. It was time to say bye-bye to the rear spoiler. It was ugly, unnecessary, and did not like rainwater. Quite easy to remove. Disgusting dirt, cleaned up pretty well too. First time I ever removed a battery terminal so that I could disconnect the spoiler's third brake light safely. The unmodifying continues. Removed the rear reflector. Image 2, before. Image 3, immediately after removing rear reflector. Image 4, after much cleaning. Remove the Perodua branded engine air filter housing to reveal the true origins of this engine. A Daihatsu branded valve cover. The Kancil script on the side moldings. Makes a big difference in my opinion. Unfortunately for me, the one on the passenger side was completely faded. Turns out, there is a use for white color pencils. Not perfect, but it is permanent. Unfortunately, could not use the white color pencil to brighten the slightly faded script on the driver side. Image 1, the driver side of the Kancil. Image 2, the passenger side faded script. Image 3, white color pencil against the side moldings. Image 4, passenger side script, now colored. Image 5, close-up of driver side script. The center console needed refurbishment. Was not too sure if a coat of black paint was going to help, but I decided to try it out regardless. Pretty happy with results. I love the large storage space in front of the gear shifter. I understand why people put in aftermarket radios in their cars, but what I do not understand is how to use the stock radio, particularly how to save presets. Took it out from the dashboard to see whether there was a model number I could Google, but no results found. So just going to listen to one FM radio station for now. Next on the agenda, paint the faded mirror thingy on the door black. Passenger side front door handle was looking rather odd. Gave it a coat of black paint. Better, but it ain't perfect when compared to the other door handles. The only panel gap that isn't even, between the bonnet and left fender. Not a very accurate fuel gauge. My passengers can never seem to shut the front passenger door properly on first try. What's the top speed of a manual 850 cubic centimeter stock Kancil? 140 kilometers per hour apparently, which I find rather impressive. The one thing that rattles and shakes while driving, the rear view mirror, and off to a mechanic it goes. Now normally when it comes to painting car wheels, we either DIY or go to a paint shop. But for me, I have a mechanic who said he can do it, and so I let him do it. He did tell me that if I wanted the best, I should probably go elsewhere, and while the finished product isn't the best, it's good enough. If you look closely at median number 152, the tire side wall is damaged. Not leaking air, yet, but my mechanic did recommend me to change tires. Front right driveshaft replaced. I complained of knocking sounds audible at low speed when turning the wheel left-right repeatedly. Yes, I'm aware no one does this in real-world driving. Adjusted AC belt to stop this racket of a noise. So one of my earliest posts shared a headlight issue I was having. Turns out it was because the high beam on my right headlight didn't work. Wiring problem apparently. Changed the gear oil too. Glad to know the temperature gauge works. But this did result into a tow, as shown in media. One night, I was driving back from my local supermarket. The aircon wasn't cold. Then something exploded in the engine bay. All happened so quickly. Steam briefly came up from the bonnet. Then it didn't idle right, going up and down. A few days later, I would attempt to drive the car to my mechanic. I looked down and saw the temperature gauge was all the way to H. There was traffic ahead. I tried driving home, but when stopped at a traffic light, I switched off the engine and it didn't want to start again. I've overheated the car. So this pipe carry water and help cools the engine. However, due to the use of plain water opposed to coolant by the previous owner, it rusted. It's safe to assume that the explosion that one night was all the water leaking out, hitting the hot manifold and evaporating. With overheating an engine comes a warped engine head cause it's made of aluminum. And with removing the head, my mechanic concluded that the previous owner did not change the engine oil frequently. Most evident by the hardened stuck oil to the valve cover. So by old warped head. Hello new refurbished head from Japan. Hopefully this will also cure the white smoke problem I have. White smoke apparently is caused by the burning of oil. Fact, when I was blasting at 140 km/h, I looked at my rear view mirror and I was definitely leaving a large cloud of white smoke behind. And it's fixed. New pipe, timing belt kit, gasket, cylinder head, spark plugs, radiator cap and coolant plus adjusting and tuning. L-shaped taillights, grinning face with smiling eyes. The light for the number plate took some jiggling for it to work. You can still see the speedo and rev counter through the smaller gaps of the steering wheel, barely wide enough. 13 kilometers to a liter. I guess the engine was truly messed up. I was disappointed pre-top overhaul, getting just 10 kilometers to a liter. Checked Fuely, showed me that I was an abnormally. Now I'm happy. That's a 25% improvement. The dot-shaped small-sized white-colored mysterious objects that littered my dashboard together with the ants out of the aircon vents are thankfully a thing of the past. During a past public holiday, took some time to attend to the car. Started off by scrapping off the old tape that I stuck a few months back to cover the holes left behind by removing the spoiler. Applied multiple layers of new tape and also removed the tape from the other side. With steel wheels, I like to say paint them silver if you don't plan to use hubcaps and paint them black if you do plan to use hubcaps. After a few months of running without hubcaps, I decided to put them back on. Started off by painting the metal rings, but then could not put them back on the hubcaps, so just zip-tied the hubcaps to the steel wheels. Also touched up the steel wheel where the wheel weights were previously at. The gap between the B-pillars and the seats are quite small, often meaning that the seat belts won't fully retract into place. I checked the dipstick and it was at E. Back to the mechanic for the first oil change. A few weeks ago, an advertisement for the Perodua Rusa from the 1990s circulated the net. It was also around this time that I needed to haul items. I rarely use the rear seats, so out they came. The bottom bench, no brittle plastic clips, just a couple of bolts and a bit of pulling, the bench is out. Then the seat back can fold flatter and that too comes out with the removal of a couple of bolts. I have not been driving around with the spare tire, but I put it back for a relative flat cargo area. More Sinaran please. Having a 850 cubic centimeters engine also means that there is a piece of plastic at the bottom of the window. Tried to remove it months ago, but didn't know how to. Recently when my window go up and down, a loud metal sound sounded, probably due to the sticker I stuck messing with the interior rubber strip, image 4, goes between the door and glass. The interior rubber strip comes out way too easily on the axia and for a Kancil, it is a nightmare to put back in requiring a little bending and tricks to ignore the existence of the glass. Oh, yet another water damaged door card. Here is not a Kancil. No, not the car from the IG poll. That will come soon I hope. Rather, here's an axia with the back seats removed. According to my measurements and calculation, the boot floor plus seat base area in the axia is only 8.65% larger than in the Kancil. Add to the fact that it is not flat, more of the fuel pump wiring is exposed. There is isofix mounts and seat belt buckles in the way. Gives me one more reason to prefer a Kancil over an axia. The speakers that came with the Kancil would sound alright if one of them wasn't broken, so I decided to borrow the two rear speakers from an axia. Involved removing the rear door panels, which made me realize that someone should make Kancil style fabric on wood door cards for an axia to brighten up the interior. Back to the Kancil, enlarging a portion of the speaker holes and threading a new hole for one screw each. I had both speakers mounted. Sadly, while the positive terminal was plug and play, the negative was not. The wrong-sized crimped connector. Chopped the connector off and soldered the wire directly onto the back of the connector. Not a professional soldering job at all with the exposed copper being a concern. Paint flaking off, surprisingly not that black or gray under the paint. Increases my suspicion that the front bumper may have been repainted before. 1 year with the Kancil. I do not usually talk about money, but here is an exception. The car was apparently Rm 4300 on the road. We then proceeded to spend an additional Rm 3388 at a mechanic over several visits and at a separate tire shop. In total, that is Rm 7688. Average that over 12 months and that is a whopping Rm 640.67 per month. I say whopping because that is more than double the monthly repayments for some new car loans. Adding salt to the injury, the car only has done 4,000 kilometers in the last year. That is roughly Rm2 per kilometer. Unfair comparison, with rapid Penang and Rm2, I can travel up to 14 kilometers. I love the car, but not the cost. I have zero clue how I can easily sell this without taking a massive financial loss. The only idea I had was trading up, but that sounds like a lengthy timely process. Rear passenger side door. It has a massive dent. Thought of trying to see if I could push the dent out. I doubt it can be undented, but wanted to try. Started removing the door card when it started raining, so I went inside. Could not get the hand crank window handle removed and gave up. Also realized that it leaks water inside. Oh great, yet another problem. I suspect it is caused from the door seals. Problem with the exhaust. 1. The exhaust pipe from the engine was no longer connected to the silencer, effectively having the length of the exhaust system. 2. Without the connection, the exhaust pipe hits the car's floor if I go over speed humps too quickly. At first, I thought I was bottoming out the suspension, but later figured it was the exhaust since I only heard noises from one side of the car. 3. So the exhaust system is loud, but I do like the noise. 4. I have been putting off repairing this problem for months since it poses no risk to leaving me stranded. However, I am not the only person driving this car, and the other people were constantly commenting on how loud the car was. So I visited an exhaust shop. Rm290 later, I have a whole new exhaust system. I was told by a person at the exhaust shop that the previous exhaust system firstly is not original and secondly, used the wrong type of gasket. Problem with the rear left-hand crank window. I most prefer driving with all 4 windows down and no aircon. So when I went to wind down my rear left window this morning, half asleep me was baffled why the window would not go down after the halfway mark. It was stuck. After trying some more, I heard something drop in the door and the window now can be moved by hand. 1. So the window crank just moves freely. Why? 2. Because the hand crank mechanism has fallen apart. I have added some annotations to help illustrate my point. So rotating the hand crank alters the position of part number 2. Part number 2 moves up and down. As it moves up and down, its end shifts left to right/right to left in a track of part number 1. Part number 3 is a piece of rubber that holds the piece number 1 and the glass together. 3. At first I thought the problem was with part number 1 being no longer attached to part number 2. Part number 1 was the part that fell into the door. I initially struggled to get part number 1, part number 3, and the glass to go together. However, after much pushing and pulling, I got these three things reunited together. However, as visible in the photo, there is a portion of part number 3 hanging to the left indicating that it is not fully reunited. 4. Part number 3 is rubber and old. By the time I was finished handling it, it started to split. So after reuniting the three parts, part number 1, part number 3, and the glass, I realized that it was actually part number 2 that is to be blamed. It is because of part 2 that part number 1 dropped to the bottom of the door. 5. A replacement mechanism does not seem too costly from online sites, but I am not going to permanently resolve this problem. Rather, I have reassembled it all back together, just without the hand crank. The existing mechanism, while now useless for lowering and raising the window, is positioned and useful for preventing the window from being lowered just by our hands. 6. The hand cranks were very difficult to remove. Ended up scratching the handle and washer quite substantially. Disassembled the rear driver's side door for reference, and that hand crank was missing its washer. The hand CR continuation ink was easy to put back on though. Such a coincidence. I replaced the exhaust yesterday, and today a new problem appears. This very door is very problematic. It is this door that is not waterproof. It is this door that has a noticeable dent. It is this door that the Kancil script on the exterior was faded. More Sinaran, please. Part 2. 1. While attempting to understand the problem with my window earlier today, I decided to remove the piece of plastic that covers the topmost part of the door on the remaining 3 doors. 2. This meant the removal of some rubber which tore the tint I have on my rear windows. 3. Hoping to sell these plastic pieces as I doubt it affects the car resale value and will help fund this problematic car in the short run. This Perodua Kancil could just be one of Malaysia's most problematic Perodua Kancil. 4. View of interior without the plastic pieces. 5. View of interior without the plastic pieces. Note the missing cover for the bolt at the top of the seatbelt. Problem with front passenger seat. The backrest was stuck since the day we got this car. 1 year later, I thought it was time for me to see if I could fix it. I managed to make the backrest move again, but the mechanism to make sure the backrest stays put at your desired angle is still stuck. So I have made the seat worse. This is a problem I would like to fix, however, I cannot find the seat mechanism online. Now I know. My driver's side fender, video 1 and video 2, is easily dentable and easily undentable, while my passenger fender is not so easily dentable. The two sounds different too. I can only guess why the car came with zip ties securing the plastic pieces by the base of the windshield and why the wiper arms were flipped, right and left. My best guess is that the previous owner was tall and wanted to save money by buying smaller wiper blades. Using the longer arm on the driver's side allows for the top of the windshield to be wiped with small blades. With no plans to drive my Kancil anytime soon and not content with just unplugging the battery, I drained the fuel tank. 117mm bolt later and out the petrol goes. Initially used a blue plastic basin, then a bigger metal basin, and then back to the blue basin. Not going to reuse the last round cause it's too dirty/black. The petrol then went into my family's Axia. Gained 3 bars, whatever this means. Before unplugging the tank, tried siphoning to no avail. I've learned that petrol is surprisingly cold and great at staining plastic ware and ceramic tiles. Now I know. You can weld these switches so that the circuit permanently closed. Don't think these switches are that expensive, so not sure why it's welded. What I do know is that there was quite the small rock collection behind the rubber that covers this usually. With a dying Sharpie, attempted to re-highlight the H on the center wheel's cap. Should have 4, but missing 1. Has been missing for years and the other 3 are not in that great of a condition. Tire size is 195/60R15, something in common with the last generation Persona, I believe. I wished that the first dashboard I removed would be on a Kancil-like car, but unfortunately no. My desire to right the wrongs of this 1993 Honda Accord has gone quite far. The problem seems simple at first. Patch the wiring which had been hacked and eliminate unnecessary wires. Both are the after effects of an aftermarket alarm system previously installed. My family has paid a mechanic to remove the alarm system, but he did not do that great of a job understandably. As this car was sold in US, there are still active English FB groups for this generation of Accord. They and YouTube videos have been very helpful. Whether I will be able to put back the car when the times comes, I have no clue. The car currently sits under a shed, dusty and dirty as I got busy and now rarely attend to this car. I'm not good at cinematic style videos, but decided to give it a go. The car is definitely not finished. We'll come back to it in the future, but it's good to have it back on the road. Learned a lot thus far, and there's still so much more to learn.